Still.
Good morning, everybody. It's Kevin.
Hi, Kevin. Oh, he's waiting. That's two people. Gotcha.
Lori, Jeff, Lori.
Yeah.
Rhonda, do we have quorum yet? Doesn't look like it. Oh, maybe. Oh, a lot of people just jumped on.
We actually do. Just
Perfect. Then it's 10 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Let us start off with roll call.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the TAC. Coconino County, Lucinda Andriani. I don't believe she's with us yet. I'll come back. Coconino County Citizen Representative, Julian Thomas.
Here.
Thank you. City of Flagstaff, Jeff Bowman.
Good morning, I'm here.
Thank you. City of Flagstaff Citizen Representative Kevin Parks.
Good morning, present.
Thank you. Metro Plan Dave Wessel. He's expected. I'll come back. NAU Aaron Stom.
Here.
NAU ASNAU student Clarice Green.
Present. Good morning.
Morning, thank you. CCC Kurt Stull.
Present. Good morning, everyone.
Morning. Economic Development Representative Gail Jackson is excused. And let me just see if we've had anyone else try to enter. Okay. I do not see Lucinda Andriani from the county or Dave Wessel from Metro Plan yet. Excuse me. Oh, Dave. Metro Plan Dave Wessel, are you with us?
Just signed in. Hello, everybody.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, we have staff members in the room, in the training room and on Zoom. And we do have our attorney, Mitesh Patel, and joining him as well, Chris Beecher. Thank you.
Good morning.
Well, good morning, everybody. Happy spring, and I hope folks are enjoying the beautiful weather. Before we move on this morning, I'm going to ask Heather to just share a few words of thanks for some of our members who have departed or are about to depart. in appreciation of their time to this group. Heather.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of our Transit Advisory Committee. I wanted to take a moment to recognize Jimmy Jane, who is leaving his position as Coconino County Manager and therefore our Transit Advisory Committee. And Jimmy's been a tremendous friend to transit, and I know our community will miss him. So we are sending over a card for him with our best wishes for whatever his future brings. Second, wanted to recognize Clarice Green, who has been serving on behalf of Northern Arizona University. And Clarice, we want to thank you for taking the time to, join us for our TAC meetings. We appreciate your attendance and interest in transit, and we wish you luck in your final year at NAU and whatever your future brings you.
Great, thank you, Heather, and thanks to both Jimmy and Clarice for their time here. I do appreciate it. Moving on, we're going to go into our safety minute with Sam Short.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the TAC. The April Safety Minute is regarding how your choices at home can affect safety on the job. There are many choices we make at home that can have major effects at work. Whether it is safety related or lifestyle choices, many of these choices have repercussions that carry over from home into the workplace. It is important to realize how closely connected our personal and professional lives are. For example, you go out with your friends to a late Sunday night football game. You choose to go out with your friends afterwards until 1 a.m., knowing you must be up at 4 a.m. to go to work. You make it into work on time, but you are still feeling the effects of staying out late, and you are very fatigued. You are now putting everyone and the company at a risk for an injury or some type of loss. Even choices that are perceived as positive can have a negative effect at work. For example, you choose to take a second job at a convenience store for extra money during the daytime when you are off from your night job. A few weeks into that routine, you realize how hard it is to get enough rest before going into your night shift job as a forklift operator or bus operator. One night at work, you start to fall asleep and strike a support beam to a large shelving system. Half of the shelves collapse, dropping in expensive computer components to the floor. The company now faces a loss of over $400,000. Sure, nobody got hurt this time, but how will this affect everyone else at the work site and the company on a larger scale? While we do have the freedom to choose whatever we want to do outside of work, it is very important to realize how these decisions affect the safety of ourselves and coworkers, not to mention the company as a whole. Thank you and welcome to the April Transit Advisory Committee meeting.
Thank you, Sam. Good words indeed. Next item is to review and approve the TAC minutes from March 4th. First, if anybody has any comments or questions on the minutes. And again, I'm going to try to do my best job of looking for raised hands. Okay, not seeing any comments or questions. Can I please get a motion to approve the March 4th minutes?
I will put forward a motion for you, Aaron.
Thank you, Jillian. Can I get a second, please?
Hi, this is Jeff. I would second.
Thank you, Jeff. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are so approved. Moving on to our TAC agenda, our first discussion action item today is consider the FY20 financial audit report. Lori.
Good morning, Chair Stom and Transit Advisory Committee members. Lori Batiste, the Management Service Director. I'm here today to let you know that we did receive preliminary board approval of our fiscal year 2020 financial audit report. We are still awaiting the report from Fester and Chapman, our financial auditors, although we don't anticipate any findings or deficiencies as reflected in the staff report. And we do plan to file to meet the federal reporting deadline. That deadline has been extended. It was previously March 31st, and this year it's been extended to September 30th. Although with that deadline, we're still they're still hoping to get the report to us as soon as possible, and we'll get it filed as soon as possible. So we don't anticipate taking advantage of that much time that's been provided. And once the report is received, we will still provide it to the TAC as well as the board. And if there were any changes to what I have already provided in the staff report or here, then of course we would seek revised approval. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Lori. Any questions for Lori? Seeing none. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Hi. Moving on, review of our draft board business agenda, consent agenda item, consider the Metro Plan and Mountain Line Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Transportation Plan. Estella.
Thank you, Chair and members of the TAC. This is a consent item, so I believe that this should there shouldn't be a presentation. Am I correct? This should just be approved as a consent.
My apologies on that. Okay.
Correct.
Heather, I don't know if I have to do anything special on that. You know, we don't get a lot of these.
Right. Now, unless somebody wants to pull it for discussion or additional action, it can just be, you can move right into the discussion and action items. The board will take a vote to approve consent items, but the TAC does not.
Okay, thanks, Heather.
I want to make Estella do a presentation.
Dave.
Oh,
behave.
never mind. Go ahead.
All right, discussion action items. Consider vice chair ascension and election of a vice chair for the board of directors. Rhonda.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the TAC. Let me just note also that Coconino County Representative Lucinda Andriani has joined us. So, as most of you know, Chair Peru has effectively resigned his position with CCC, which is how he was on the Mountain Line Board, effective next Monday, April 5th. And therefore will no longer be on our board. We have reached out to Vice Chair Shimoni, and he has agreed to ascend should that be the will of the board. So we will be bringing that to the April 21st board meeting for the potential of him ascending to the chair position after one full meeting. And then we will elect hopefully a new vice chair at that meeting. And there's obviously no voting for the TAC, but just to make you aware of the plans. And that is outlined in the staff report per our most current rules of procedure. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thanks, Rhonda. Any questions for Rhonda? Okay, thanks, Rhonda.
Thank you.
Next item, Estella, consider the microtransit pilot in the Huntington and Industrial Corridor. How about a presentation today?
I am prepared for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and members of the TAC. I'm Estella Hollander, and I'm the mobility planner for Mountain Line. And I'm here to review the proposed microtransit pilot, as well as seek board approval to open up the public comment period. So next slide, Rhonda. So first, a little bit of background about this project. So Mountain Line received grant funding from Community Transportation Association of America, or CTAA, for Transit Planning for All to test out a mobility on demand pilot. And I'll go into more details of what mobility on demand means. And so this is one-time grant funding to pay for the operations as well as the capital expenses of a pilot program. And the goals of this grant, it's a large focus on inclusive planning, as well as implementing a pilot for a mobility on-demand solution. So next, and one thing to note is that picture is pre-COVID. So next slide, Rhonda. And so this project is focusing on the Huntington and Industrial Corridor. And really the goal of this is to fill the geographic gap in this area. And so Some of you may know this area is home to many clinics as well as human service agencies and essential services. It includes the Flagstaff Shelter Services, Hajoni, and the Guidance Center as well. And this area, one of the goals is to provide additional access to this area since the current transit, which is nearby, it's difficult to access. You have the railroad tracks to the north as well as I-40 to the south, causing physical barriers to access the existing transit. And so next slide. And so mobility on demand. So this is kind of an umbrella term for transportation services that can be hailed in real time. So similar to like Uber and Lyft, they do not need to be, reserved 24 hours in advance. So a lot of these trips can be hailed either through an app or through a calling option as well. They're flexible, meaning they're not following a fixed route or fixed stops, as well as it utilizes emerging technology. So it's working with the private sector on either app development and things like that, and various software solutions to provide this type of service. And so Mountain Line is focusing on microtransit, which we will be utilizing our paratransit vehicles, which is pictured on the right-hand side there. And it will be open to the general public. So next slide, Rhonda. And so a big focus of this planning and implementation effort is inclusion. So making sure that we are bringing the right people to the table to help us make decisions throughout the planning and implementation phase. And so Mountain Line has developed a microtransit stakeholder group, which includes agency staff in the corridor, as well as other public agencies and nonprofit entities, as well as has some citizens attending as well, including older adults and people with disabilities. And again, the goal of this stakeholder group is really to provide feedback and input throughout the various milestones of the planning process and help make decisions on the microtransit project. So next slide, please. And so in addition to the stakeholder group, Mountain Line has also conducted several public outreach. We had 2 surveys going, one geared towards agency staff for the staff to fill out kind of on behalf of their clients, trying to understand some of their transportation challenges and kind of issues trying to access the Huntington and Industrial Corridor, as well as a survey geared towards the public and potential riders, again, kind of using this corridor. Also conducted 3 outreach events, COVID safe, so either they were outside or at least had open doors, socially distanced, and one was at the shelter, as well as Hajoni and the food kitchen in Sunnyside. And then also engaged and provide presentations at a variety of community organizations. So next slide, please. And so taking the feedback from the stakeholder group as well as the public outreach conducted, this group have developed this proposed service area, which there still will be minor tweaks and updates. Kind of the next step is to get a microtransit software vendor on board. So we do have a request for proposals, or RFP, on the streets. And so would like them to just reevaluate this proposed service area, since they do have expertise in implementing microtransit pilots. But the yellow area in the center, this is a geofence zone where pickup and drop-offs can happen throughout the entire corridor. So again, providing that flexible service. And then the blue circles are designated pickup and drop-off points. So again, the goal is really to provide increased access to that yellow area, or the Huntington Industrial Corridor. So still to be evaluated will be maybe a pickup and drop-off point in the Sunnyside area. And so the goal is also to reduce duplication with our fixed route. So really, again, wanting to enhance this area highlighted in yellow. And so the planning phase is from, it was started in October through July, and the launch is proposed to be in August for 9 months, or until grant funding is spent. So next slide, Rhonda. And so part of this planning process is Title VI, which is a process to consider equity impacts for disadvantaged populations. And it's based on a variety of policies for our programs. And so we are wanting a formal comment period from April 21st through June 16th. And since this is a pilot program, so this is not intended to be necessarily a permanent service, Title VI is not technically required. However, staff still thought it was important to conduct this process and seek additional input from the community. And so staff will return in June with the comments received and seek formal approval from the board for the pilot program. And this is my last slide, so I'm open to any questions or comments.
Thanks, Estella. So just to start off, I'm excited about it. Is this something the on demand? I mean, I think we've talked about it on a larger scale. Is this something that we think do the pilot program, see how that goes? How does it affect service, and consider potentially looking at a bigger plan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That is one of the goals. I think this will be a great learning lesson, for Mountain Line to understand just the successes and lessons learned for implementing a microtransit pilot. Mountain Line's 5-year plan, which will be just was kicked off. I think a lot of the outcomes of this pilot will be put into the 5-year plan as well to see if this is a viable option in other spaces. One thing to note, so this is one-time grant funding for operations. So I think just trying to identify additional funding opportunities to expand microtransit will be an important aspect.
Okay, thanks, Estella. Dave, and then Jillian.
Yeah, I just want to take the time to commend Estella and Mountain Line on a really excellent process. People are really engaged in the meetings, making sure that people are included. And I think we're seeing a lot of good progress as a result.
Great. Thank you, Dave. Jillian.
I know the corridor pretty well. I travel it a lot, and you have not mentioned the hotels. Are they? I don't see them in the stakeholders, but you've got the new La Quinta, you've got a Super 8, you've got about 4 old-fashioned big hotels along that corridor. Is there any thought of them being involved in this?
Thank you for that comment. I think we have not reached out to them. I think that definitely is a stakeholder that we can include. I think the area that we were more focusing on is just east of 4th Street, but definitely someone could take the fixed route, which is near the hotels that you mentioned, and then be able to use the microtransit to access this corridor. But I'll definitely make note to be able to include them in the planning process and help with outreach as well.
Yes, and just maybe talk with their hotel managers. Also, that does cover or get close to where the truck drivers are, and generally they don't have cars. And that's a corridor they use, I know. Fine, thank you, Estelle.
Thank you for that. Mm-hmm.
Any other comments or questions for Estella? Seeing none, thank you, Estella. Let's see, next item on the agenda. Oh, Estella again. Consider delegation of authority to the CEO and general manager to execute federal grants.
Thank you, Chair and members of the TAC. Next slide, please, Rhonda. And so Mountain Line's IGA directs staff to seek federal funding to reduce costs borne by the City of Flagstaff transit tax. And so typically federal funding opportunities are available for capital projects. And so staff have identified 4 priority capital projects with the potential to leverage these federal funds. And so these projects and applications are being singled out today since they were not included in the FY21 delegation of authority, and the opportunity to apply will occur before the FY22 delegation is authorized. And so the 4 priority capital projects that Mountain Line is looking to seek federal funding is outlined on this slide. And the first one is electric charging infrastructure. And this is to support the 2 electric buses that Mountain Line has received funding for. And all of the cost amounts on here is the total value of the project, to note that. And so the next project is a commercial driver's license or CDL test course. And this would be to construct a CDL test course for both Mountain Line and NAU transit operations. The third project is a maintenance package, and this is to design and renovate our existing maintenance facility at the Mountain Line headquarters. And then the fourth project is for operation support vehicles. So this can include snow removal equipment, as well as other vehicles, again, to support operations, but not necessarily buses. These are really these non-revenue vehicles. So next slide, please. And so there are a variety of funding opportunities coming up. The 2 upcoming federal opportunities, and this is in addition to the Low-No grant that Busy Collins presented on last month. First is the Arizona Department of Transportation, or ADOT 530739 grant. And this is a competitive capital application. And these are typically funded at an 80-20 split, meaning 20% is local funds. Another upcoming grant opportunity is the Federal Transit Administration, or FTA 5339. And this is another competitive capital application, also typically funded at 80-20. However, this is nationwide. So these do tend to be a bit more competitive compared to the ADOT grants. Another funding opportunity is congressionally directed spending, or earmarks. And so this is something that the Biden administration has reinstated, and this is outside of the competitive grant process. And Mountain Line submits projects to Congress members, and we work very closely to strategize with Nexus Consultant on just to understand the best opportunities to fund these capital projects, as well as which projects to be considered under these funding opportunities. And next slide, please. And so Mountain Line is seeking partnership opportunities to help with the required local match. However, Mountain Line does have the adequate local match for all the projects that were listed, which totals about $2.4 million. The 2 partnership opportunities, one is with the electric charging infrastructure. Staff is seeking a partnership with APS to help contribute to the local match. The other opportunity is for the CDL test course, where Mountain Line is working with NAU for an opportunity to split the local match. Next slide, please. I think that is the end of my presentation. So I am open for any comments or questions.
Comments or questions for Estella? Not seeing anything. Thanks, Estella.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the Caspar Intersection Plan and Transit Signal Priority. Anne and Estella.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of TAC. I'm Ann Dunno, the Capital Project Manager, and my colleague Estella Hollander and I are going to give you a little update on the Caspar Intersection Plan and the Transit Signal Priority planning process that we have going on. So with that, next slide, please. Thank you, Rhonda. A little background on the Caspar Intersection project. Started out, the goal of the project for Mountain Line is to increase our safety and efficiency to access the main road on Highway 89 right out in front of our Caspar facilities, shown on this map. We developed a intersection analysis back in 2015 with our partners, the city and Metro Plan, to identify a concept, at the time about a 15% plan. And we subsequently sought grant funding and received grant funding for $2.7 million to design and construct the Caspar intersection. Next slide, please. Here you see the final plan. We have actually, we have reached final design with our consultant Woodson Engineering and are currently seeking construction bids. We will be putting out another procurement for construction here in a few weeks. You can see that the intersection design will provide new connectivity for not only our buses, but the public. It also provides multimodal connectivity. We coordinated with Martin Ince with MetroPlan for making sure we can accommodate the Foots Trail. We also have a bike lane access across 66. You can also see that there are, with the design, we actually are designing for a 2030 time horizon. So the intersection will accommodate that traffic, anticipated traffic growth in this area. Kind of a little of the logistics with the design. The road actually needs to drop the road profile. So there is a fair amount involved with utilities and making those reconnections. And so we anticipate the project, once it hits the street, that it might be a two-season project where the contractor would finish up in spring of 2022. With that, I'd like to pass this over to Estella to maybe talk about the transit signal priority.
Thank you, Anne. And next slide, Rhonda. So first, just a little bit of background, high level of kind of what TSP is, or a transit signal priority. And so the goal of TSP is to improve travel time reliability, as well as to reduce delay at signalized intersections. So this could be to extend the red light, or sorry, reduce the red light or extend the green light. And essentially is a tool to provide preference to transit. So as a transit vehicle is moving through an intersection, the TSP can detect the vehicle and again, either extend the green or reduce the red. So next slide, Pete, please. And so Mountain Line is working with AECOM to develop an implementation plan for TSP, and together have identified some specific Mountain Line TSP system goals. And one of them is the ease of future expansion and scalability. So the TSP system that will be installed at the US 89 and Route 66 intersection, we want to ensure that there is compatibility and ensure that this TSP system could work in other areas around Flagstaff if TSP does expand. However, it is to note there are no plans at this time to expand TSP, as well as automated TSP operation, meaning that we want to make sure that the operators, don't have to press a button or anything like that. This just automatically occurs, and as well as to improve travel time reliability and develop a TSP solution that is beneficial to our stakeholders, which is the City of Flagstaff as well as ADOT. And so again, working with AECOM, they recommended that our system is conditional compared to non-conditional, meaning TSP will only be activated based on certain criteria. So for example, when the bus is running X minutes late, then TSP will turn on. They also recommended the TSP architecture, and this is basically how the TSP functions, or kind of how calls are received and how the various components interact with each other. And they recommended a distributed system, which compared to a centralized and distributed can be more resilient as well as stable compared to, again, centralized, which has kind of the central component where all the calls are received. So next slide, Rhonda. Thank you. And so for next steps, we will continue to coordinate with the City of Flagstaff just to further define the roles and responsibilities between the agencies, as well as a TSP vendor, which we hope to get on board. And so we will be issuing a request for proposals, or RFP, for a TSP vendor, which they supply the hardware as well as the software. And as well as we will be developing an IGA between City and Mountain Line. And this will really be the foundation, again, to define those roles and responsibilities, which can be used for future TSP expansion as well. And I believe that is the end of my presentation. So Ann and I welcome any questions.
Thanks, Estella and Ann. Kevin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm kind of interested in this integration of the bus priority in that intersection, noting that as a pedestrian, I've had to cross Route 66 there, and that can be actually a pretty timely crossing. So I certainly hope that pedestrians already using a crossing signal actually have the priority over transit. Am I correct?
Thank you for that question. Let me make sure I understand. And so the TSP, it does detect the vehicle, the transit vehicle, the bus. And so if the bus is running late for an X amount of minutes, which we will define, then the TSP will be initiated. And so we definitely will make sure though that, it can affect the signal timing, but make sure that, the pedestrian timing is still part of that. So I guess I'll make sure that, we definitely will be incorporating the needs of pedestrians.
Yeah, this would be very important for somebody who's actually mobility challenged.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Jillian. Jillian, I see your hand up.
I forgot to unmute myself.
That's okay.
I was wondering what is the story with the Linda Vista extension into that, because that will upset a transit favored signal. I mean, is there any talk of extending Linda Vista?
Jillian, thank you for your question. Rhonda, would you mind going back to the intersection plan slide? Jillian, yeah. So Mountain Line does not have an intention to extend Linda Vista. If it would be a city project if that public road was extended. It actually shows up on the city's long range transportation plan, but it's not programmed anytime by the city. So there's currently no funding to extend that road as a public road, although we did accommodate the design to fit a future Linda Vista extension.
Thank you. I have a feeling that the neighborhood would probably not want the extension because it would just bring up more traffic on the road. But someone told me a little history of that, and apparently Linda Vista is as wide as it is because it was going to be the original extension onto 40 before Country Club access was built. So I thought that was rather interesting. The width of it is because it was meant to be a major back route to 40.
Jillian, I have heard that actually, and I understand Dave Wessel may have a little more insight into that bigger picture transportation planning history in Flagstaff. Yes, I have heard that as well. Just for the TAC's understanding, as part of this project, we did communicate and coordinate with the adjacent townhome community, Mount Eldon Villas, for not just because we wanted to be good, neighbors about the project, but also we needed to seek temporary construction easements. And so they're supportive. I've actually met with the HOA board. So that immediate neighborhood actually is aware of a potential for a future road for Linda Vista. And they're definitely aware of this project and are supportive with signing off on the temporary construction easement. So we have had those types of neighborhood conversations about just this project.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wondered what the picture was. Thank you.
Thanks, Jillian. Jeff.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up quickly on Advisor Park's question and comment, because there's I can provide a little more detail. So transit signal priority is different than railroad preemption, which you may be familiar with, where in fact the pedestrian phases do get omitted and shortened. Transit signal priority, we could do that, but typically it's not done that way. You continue to give priority to the pedestrian phases so they're not shortened or skipped or omitted or anything like that. So hopefully that helps a little bit with that question.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Any other questions on this topic for Estella or Anne? Seeing none, we will move on. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Next item is review organizational structure and compensation plan. Heather.
Good morning again, Madam Chair and members of our Transit Advisory Committee. This item is the third in our education series that we started in February. So we are going to review the organizational structure and compensation plan. This is not an action item for the board, but an opportunity for us to receive feedback and or direction. Next slide. So we'll start with a review of our org structure, and I believe the entire structure was in your packet. I have cut and pasted them into segments to kind of explain our team structures. So my position reports directly to the board of directors, and the Transit Advisory Committee, all of you, are advisors to myself and the general management team, which are illustrated in this excerpt of our overall structure. The members of our general management team, you can see in the blue, the kind of darker blue boxes across the bottom of that image. These are our department leads. Next slide. Breaking down our structure into our departments, our Deputy General Manager, Kate Morley, leads the planning department. She also acts as our Title VI officer, which is really important under the Federal Transit Administration for service and service planning and comments from the public. Kate's supported by 6 staff positions. 2 of those are intern level positions that are part-time. 1 of those we share with MetroPlan. And we actually still have one of these positions, as shown, is vacant. It is titled long range planner because that's what's been on the books for a while, but we keep trying to assess what really is needed in that position as we move forward and are using the vacancy as an opportunity to potentially redefine the position. Next slide. The next group that we'll go over is Management Services Director, which is really our administrative department. This used to have an administrative director as the lead position. When I vacated that position, we took an opportunity to redefine the position and actually combine our business manager and our administrative director into one position. So our Management Services Director is also our Civil Rights Officer. So she handles any civil rights concerns that may come into the building. And that makes sense because the Purchasing and Contracts Officer that she supervises is the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Liaison, and the Human Resources Manager is our Equal Employment Opportunity Officer. So we did redefine, as I mentioned, the Administrative Director combining with the Business Manager, and as part of that, we took one of our 2 HR support positions and created an HR Manager. So this is 11 support positions. 1 of those is a part-time intern, and overall we have 1 position savings out of this restructuring of this division. Next slide. We have 2 very small departments, our safety department and our marketing communications manager. Communications department are illustrated on this slide. Sam Short is our safety manager. He oversees all of our safety programs, including our safety committee, and oversees liability and risk concerns. Marketing and communications manager leads our communications department. And this is actually new, although Jackie is not new. We have added a position under Jackie called community outreach specialist, and we're moving customer service over into our communications department. Next slide. And our last department is by far our biggest department. This is our operations department. It is led by our operations director. We did move facilities into this department when Wade Forrest, who was our previous facilities manager, departed the agency last September. We took it as an opportunity to really assess and evaluate And we're creating a new maintenance division under our operations department, and that's aligning our fleet and facility maintenance programs. So using that manager position a little bit differently to oversee those two functions. So our maintenance division under operations will include 1 manager, 2 coordinators, and 10 support positions. And so they are responsible for all of the bus stop maintenance as well as the vehicle maintenance, just to give you an idea. The operations division as a whole, which is on the other side of that tree, is 1 manager, 2 coordinators, 10 supervisors, and 53 support positions. Those 53 support positions are our transit operators. And again, this is our largest division. So before I move on to the compensation plan, I'll just pause to see if there's any questions about the org structure itself.
Questions for Heather? Nope, keep going.
All right. So the other part of this education item is really looking at our compensation plan. So Rhonda, next slide. So our compensation plan is based on a philosophy that our wages will be fair and market sensitive. It does include 2 types of ranges. We have 4 non-exempt positions on what we call step tables. And then we have 14 non-exempt positions on open ranges and 16 exempt positions on open ranges. We do use a 4-step strategy, which is a defined labor market that we update every 3 to 5 years. It credits for past experience during the hiring process, initial placement in the hiring range or step table, and then internal promotion. The last thing that we use as part of our compensation strategies is redefinition. You heard me use that word a couple of times, going over the org structure. But anytime a position is vacant, we do try to look at what is the long-term purpose of that position and could it change with new duties, new things that we need to accomplish, or even does it need to be backed off because someone else was moved forward. Next slide. Our compensation plan, outside of those initial things to determine pay, there are ways that we can adjust that plan. The 4 elements of adjustment are the market. So that's that. If we go out and look at where we are in competition or with competitive wages as related to both our local market and transit industry. Cost of living adjustments, which is capped at 2% per year, and it is an across the board change that has to be board approved during the budget process. We have performance-based adjustments that are available during the annual performance review. And that breaks down into 3 categories. Needs improvement means the employee does not receive any increase and actually is provided a performance improvement plan to help them better develop the skills necessary to meet the standards. We have meet standards, which allows an employee to receive up to 2%, and above and exceed standards, which is up to 4%. Those are our open range positions. We also have a step plan. So our operations division has 4 positions that live on 10 step tables. And those step adjustments allow for an employee to be hired under the minimum because they don't have a CDL and they don't have the minimum qualifications. And then we can adjust their wages over that first year of employment as they reach those various milestones. An operator typically can assume that they're going to get a step adjustment. That's what a step table does. It's built to do. However, we have in our policy that we can provide someone a partial step or even hold their step if they're not meeting the standards. And again, if they're not meeting the standards, they are provided a performance improvement plan. Next slide. So this kind of goes further into that operations step table. So this is about 60% of our employees are on this step table. We have the 2 underfills for transit operators. We hire at step 1 as long as they meet the minimum qualifications. And then each year, as long as they are meeting the standards, they get a 4.5% increase. So a little bit different than the open ranges, which are described as needing, meeting, and exceeding. Next slide. Our compensation plan does allow for other pay adjustment methods, including promotion, demotion, and redefinition. Promotions cannot exceed a 4% increase to an employee's wage. A demotion cannot be more than 4% reduction in wage, or I'm sorry, it has to be at least 4% reduction in wage. And a redefinition, similar to promotion, is a 4% increase. We do have an incentive program. We have several things under that incentive program. We have a quarterly bonus. It's currently frozen and has been frozen for several years, but it would allow employees to earn a quarterly one-time payout equivalent to 25 cents per hour for hours actually worked in the quarter if they're exceeding expectations. Right now, we're evaluating that program and the standards that go into it. We do still have our Stay On bonus program, which allows an incoming employee to earn up to $1,500 in bonuses over an 18-month period. And that's just part of our please work for us and stay longer than our training program efforts. We have tried it the other way, where we had a CDL employment agreement, which meant we collected against the training cost we invested in employee post-employment. It was not effective, so we're trying it the other way. And then we do have the referral program, which is one employee referring someone into our employment base. The referring employee has an opportunity to earn up to $800 in bonuses. Next slide. Before I turn this over for questions, I just want to acknowledge that we are going to talk about the compensation plan as it relates to the 2022 budget under the next agenda item. So with that, I will ask if there's any questions or if I can speak to anything presented on either our org structure or our compensation plan.
Questions for Heather? No questions right now, Heather. The next item, as Heather just mentioned, is a review of the FY22 workforce budget and strategies.
Thank you again. Steve Peru, our prior board chair, recommended that we take our budget and break it into several presentations rather than providing everything in one mass meeting. So today, in an effort to recognize that, we're going to talk about our workforce budget and strategies specifically. Some of this is going to sound familiar because we did just go over it in the board education item, but I will pause kind of at natural breaks just to be sure if there are questions, because it is a lot of information. Next slide. So our workforce strategies include the elements on the screen. Our operation step tables are actually 10% above the identified market for operators. And that's done strategically to ensure that we're able to retain, both attract and retain those staff members that we really need most. Right now, for example, we have 10 vacant operator positions, and that can create some crisis for us in providing service on time and as per our schedule. The rest of our staff are on open ranges, and those are built at market. Some of our other strategies include the retirement benefits. So we match the contribution into ASRS. We have 3 health plans. 2 of those are available to employees at no cost. We also share the cost for a plan that includes a spouse or a child or family members. We actually pay 55% of the additional cost for those plans. We provide free dental and vision coverage. Life insurance of $40,000 is provided. Employees could choose additional coverage or optional plans for spouse and children, but it's 100% out of pocket. We did talk about the Stay On bonus. The annual pay increase is related to our annual performance review and our incentive programs. We are recommending we continue to fund all of these through our 2022 budget. Next slide. Additionally, we have included in our budget a continuation of our vacation leave, including the one-time sellback option in October, continuation of the sick leave, which does allow employees to use 8 hours of wellness time. And that does not mean a doctor's visit per se, but it could be a walk. It could be anything you need as an employee to stay well. We also have anniversary leave. This is to recognize longevity of employees, and we are including that in our 2022 strategies. We wish to continue using reward time and recognition cards and our anniversary gift. So employees at their 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, et cetera, are provided with a catalog of items that they can choose from. And the value of the gift to receive for their anniversary is about $100 for every 5 years of service. Next slide. Other strategies that we are going to continue with are education and training options. EAP, we have 2 different providers that employees can choose from. We provide right now 6 sessions per year. As I mentioned, our referral program. We also offer assistance to new hires in getting their CDL. That includes the training, their permit, and physical cost. We have tool allowance available, including shoes for our employees and safety goggles. And then we've included our wellness, which is activities, a wellness committee, and equipment in our facilities as part of our strategies. Next slide. What we don't have in the 2022 budget, which should say workforce strategies, sorry about that. We are not proposing a COLA this fiscal year. We are continuing to freeze the bonus program while we redefine the criteria. We are not offering any new benefits. We're not proposing any changes to leave accruals or leave types, or any changes to our leave time payout rules. So for example, we currently pay out 100% of the employee's vacation time, and we only pay sick time out at 25% after 20 years of service. We are not proposing any changes in those programs. Next slide. We are including the annual pay increase per the compensation study. So that step plan would allow those positions to move 4.5% per year and open range positions to move 2 to 4% per year. That is upon completion of a year of service, so on their anniversary, and an evaluation that shows that they are meeting or exceeding standards. Next slide. Employees are required to participate in ASRS as we are a public entity, and that is an increase of 1.5% this year for both the employer and the employee. Health is going up by an average of 3%. It does depend on which plan they are on, but NABDA, or Mountain Line, sorry, will continue to pay 100% of the increase for the employee-only coverage and keep the same ratio or share in those family coverage plans. There is no increase to dental, vision, or life insurance predicted at this time. Next slide. Our workforce budget does include 3 new positions. We brought 4 limited appointment bus detailers on since March of 2020. We've had those in place to help us with our cleaning and sanitizing efforts. We're putting 1 of them in our ongoing budget. We're proposing to add 1 facilities technician. We have had 2 in our budget for probably the last half dozen years, but our shelter program continues to grow and create more demand there. Proposing to take a half-time IT technician and make them full-time and add a new half-time HR clerk position. Next slide. So let's get into the cost. Can you see that okay, or is it too small?
It looks okay to me.
Okay, good. So our cost, indirect wages is an overall decrease of 2%. And this is due to some restructuring that was done that moved positions and changed how we use those wages. Direct operations, salaries, and benefits is actually an increase of 7% overall. But I want to note that is inclusive of the 3 new positions, 3 equivalent full-time positions. That's about 115,000. So total changes comparing fiscal year 2021 budget to fiscal year 2022 budget, the change to wages in the pay plan and the benefit plan is actually 4.2% overall. So both of these categories combined without the new positions. With the new positions, it's 5.9%. So I'll pause to see if that was confusing or if you'd like to ask any questions.
Heather, it's Erin. I just think the slide and what you said are harder to follow because you're talking about comparisons and percentage, and this just has dollar figures. So, okay. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that feedback. I want to add too, and this might confuse it a little bit further, Madam Chair, the pay plan with its related cost is about 4.5% of this budget. So of the total 5.9% change, 4.5% of that is related to the pay plan.
Okay.
70% of our staff work in the step tables And those staff members move by 4.5% annually. So it really ties out in that regard.
Okay.
But I will add percentages. Thank you for that feedback. Next slide. The other budget line items that support our workforce are illustrated on the screen in front of you. It's an overall increase of 7% or $9,000. So the line items that really have an impact, trophies and prizes, that's where we pay for the anniversary gifts. That's where we pay for our recognition cards. That's where we pay for items that are given to staff at different events, is actually doubled. So in a prior year, that budget was $5,000, and we are proposing to double it to $10,000. We built an expectation with employees that we would like to maintain because we think it is part of the retention program. Recruitment cost is increased by about 50% of what it was in a prior year. And that really is related to the rising cost of advertising and the outreach that we do. Our tool allowance also increased by about 50%, but we've added both a shoe and a safety allowance to that particular line item, therefore increasing it. We created a new safety committee line item that gives that committee budget capacity to deal with emerging concerns as they come forward from staff suggestions and workplace walkthroughs. And then I just want to recognize that travel and training budget is flat with prior year budgets. And we do only spend it as we can travel and as we can attend those offsite trainings. With that, that's the complete presentation I have on our workforce strategies and budget, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Heather. Questions for Heather? Just wanted to give people a little bit of time. Not seeing any hands, Heather. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was our last discussion item. The progress reports, just as a reminder for folks, are in your packet. And we'd ask just to remind folks to review them in advance of the meeting so that this is just questions if you have any questions on any of them. We will have Heather share a summary of current events.
Thank you. So a couple of current events. Let me get my notes back up here. Switch to the agenda. Now I don't have my notes. Wanted to confirm that staff are working with the Arizona Transit Association and are watching the SCR 1024 bill that's headed to the House Rules Committee and Caucus. This bill did pass the Senate, and the impact of the bill is that it could require any vote for a tax or a tax increase or a tax renewal to gain 2/3 approval of voters when it goes to a ballot. As it stands now, the bill has to first pass, then it goes to the voters to also pass it. So it is a two-step approval process. It's something we are watching. If it were to pass and then make it pass, voter approval, then it could provide new challenges for us with our transit tax initiatives in the future and or our renewals. So we are watching with interest. We did submit 3 funding requests to Congressman O'Halloran under the congressionally directed spending that's been added as an available option. And I want to thank staff at our partner agencies as well as the Alliance Group because they quickly gave us some support letters for those applications. We'll bring the full staff report on, this full staff report on funding request was given today by Estella as well. Wanted to recognize a couple staff milestone anniversaries. Geraldine Lewis reached 5 years with the agency, and Arlinda Yazzie started with us last April and has completed her first year of employment. Both of these are transit bus operators. A couple other anniversaries. Jackie, who you all know, just celebrated 9 years with Mountain Line, and our paratransit supervisor, Bernice Tooley, celebrated 22 years in March. So I just wanted to recognize those staff members. Want to recognize Lori. Her leadership in our finance division and oversight of our procedures has really been instrumental now in 2 financial audits with no findings or deficiencies. We recognize it's hard to keep all of us corralled and following procedures, and Lori and her team work very hard and do a great job. So thank you, Lori, to you and your team, Josh, Danelle, Lynn, Tamara, and Heather. And want to call attention to Estella. She was recognized by the Arizona Daily Sun as part of being community's top 20 under 40. Much deserved recognition of her work. And lastly, I'd like to extend kudos to Busy Collins and Monica Gregg. They both have worked tirelessly to shift and adapt our schedules as in-person learning at local schools was put into place. We had to evaluate which buses are going to go where and when, and they have just constantly made those changes, and we so appreciate their efforts. And that's the total of my current events for today.
Thank you, Heather. Really nice. And I appreciate you recognizing your team. That was nice. Any other final comments or questions for Heather? Seeing none. I want to remind folks our next scheduled meeting in May is the joint board and TAC meeting. So it's not on a Thursday, it will be on a Wednesday. And Rhonda did send out an email to assess, because it will be virtual. And as she said, Zoom fatigue is real. She wanted to assess people's willingness, availability. And so is it are we doing the 9 to noon or is it the 10? Because it says 10 o'clock here, but I thought the question was 9 to noon. We might not, maybe we don't have our final answer on that yet. So if you have not replied to Rhonda, please do so. And as a reminder, this is also something that designees and alternates are invited to attend and participate in. And I strongly encourage folks to do that. It's just a good way to keep everybody, you know, if like the alternate for mine doesn't, you know, thankfully, knock on wood, I haven't missed meetings, I don't think. But she will be attending just to keep her, you know, aware and appraised and involved. So just if you haven't replied to Rhonda, please do so today so that they can finalize the time for the Wednesday, May 19th session. And then our next TAC will be Thursday, June 3rd. If there are no other comments or questions, meeting adjourned.